Elion Studios are usually pretty damn good at getting updates out to us, and you know, they still are. I'm not saying they're not, but Alpha 8 is taking its time, and it's a good thing that it's taking its time. We want to make sure that Elion do a good job with Alpha 8, and that Alpha 8 is a goddamn awesome update and is the most awesomest update so far. What I'm going to do in today's episode is summarize what we know so far about Alpha 8 from the forum posts that they have released, what we can kind of guess Alpha 8 is going to have, and also what I personally hope to see in Alpha 8 and beyond in Empyrion. So to start things off, we need to look at a forum post all the way back in December, and this was the feature survey results for 2018. Back on the 27th of December 2017, these were released, and these results were quite interesting actually. Elion were very kind to put the results into some nice charts for us to obsess over. The first one we could see is which game mode do you play the most, and there is an overwhelming majority of 47% which play single player. It would be interesting to see of that 47% what are their play hours compared to the ones that play multiplayer on dedicated servers and cooperative play in the co-op mode. Interesting, 17.8% said they play co-op play in the co-op mode. I don't think that's true, but let's go with it. I suspect a lot of people clicked on co-op play because they're actually playing on a multiplayer dedicated server cooperatively with friends. But anyway, let's glaze past that one. The next one is when you play multiplayer or co-op, do you prefer PvE or PvP? 84.3% of you said PvE. No surprise there, to be honest. What's your current total playtime of Empyrion in hours? Okay, so we're looking at between 21 hours all the way up to about 1,000 is your core player base. Beyond that, people that are in 1,000 to more than 2,000, not so many, but still a good chunk of people. Those people are probably going to be your builders, okay? You don't want to piss them off because they're producing content for the game. All right, so bear that in mind, Elion. After that, it gets quite interesting because this is where Elion start asking about different aspects of the game and its importance in relation to playstyle. Okay, so they've given us two charts here, but we can clearly see from both of them that exploration is the highest priority game aspect to playstyle in the player base. Now, if you look at the game aspects weighted element, there's actually not that much different between all of them. Okay, there's not that much difference at all. Most features were rated high by most people, so you know, major definitely had the edge on exploration. Look at the game aspects group by importance. Major importance, exploration wins, followed closely by building. Interestingly, fighting is all the way down there on major, but if we look at high and medium, fighting does rate quite highly. So going back to the weighted chart, everything's about equal, but if you want to, you know, be fiddly about it, yes, exploration is the most important aspect of the game, but this chart does show us that all aspects of the game are important, and I think it's important to remember that. The next one goes on about what do you think needs the most improvement out of those aspects, and again, exploration wins. And I agree, exploration isn't really a thing in the current game beyond your first 20 hours of gameplay or so. The next thing down though is fighting, and that is interesting given that fighting was given the least weight and importance by everyone. But again, I agree, fighting sucks in Empyrion basically, so yes, it does need a lot of attention, I think, in order to make it work. But you know, fighting encompasses a lot of things, both PvE and PvP. Adventure is just behind that, which is an extension of exploration in my opinion, but adventure also represents story. Yes, again, adventure is very important. All the aspects in this particular question are very important to the game, but I think we can say that building is pretty damn good in Empyrion, and there are things that are a slightly higher priority in my opinion than improving building, although again, building does need improving. So anyway, the next one down is going into more specific features. So most wanted primary features. And this is another thing, they've divided the features into primary, additional, and secondary. And I don't necessarily agree with the categorization of some of the features over others. So primary features is the first one that we're going to cover. Larger planets is very much out ahead, over 14%, nearly 15% of you voted larger planet as the most wanted feature. And the Alpha 8 posts that we have seen very much indicate that larger planets are coming. So that's good, that works. Next is NPC interactions, followed closely by automation, which is automation in normal words. And then shields and more solar systems. And then we go into things like NPC standing, diplomacy, procedural terrain quality, radar, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, after that is most wanted additional features. Alternative energy is out in front, with again about 15% of you voting as alternative energy is the most wanted additional features, followed by HV-SV docking, which presumably means you can dock HVs to SVs and vice versa. I'd like to see CV to CV docking in there as well at some point, but LCD screens shows ship stats. That's difficult to say when you're drunk. Turrets for SV, completely disagree with that. And autopilot, not so much autopilot, but cruise control, I would think would be better. I've put a link in the video description down below to each of these forum posts, so you can go and have a look at the survey results yourself if you want to see them in a little bit more detail. The next one down was most wanted secondary features, and this is where I'm kind of disagreeing with Elion in terms of their prioritization. Walk-in moving ship, so being able to walk within a moving ship, a moving CVSV. This is very much clear out in front, with almost 13% of you voting for that one as the most wanted. The problem I have with that is that walking in a moving ship should be a main feature, frankly. Shouldn't be down there in secondary, but I suspect it's down there in secondary because Elion want to ignore it for as long as possible because it's incredibly difficult to do. I'm not sure if the engine actually allows them to do it and they're going to have to do something very clever, or it might be that if they do it, it's going to break a hell of a lot of other stuff. So who knows? I can't see it happening very soon, if at all, to be honest. But that is the most requested secondary feature on this survey, followed by more POIs, which is simply a matter of time, and AI rework and weapon rebalancing, which yes please. But what we can predict from the overall survey results is that Elion are going to be focusing very much on single player PvE, which, you know, is single player. They're going to be focusing very much on the exploration element of things and the adventure side of things, and hopefully they're going to be improving fighting along the way as well. In terms of features, I think we're most likely to see shields coming next, and we're going to see more energy types. So we've already seen solar panels be added to the game quite recently, but hopefully we'll see geothermal, maybe even nuclear power, maybe even antimatter reactors as well at some point. But that's some kind of distant dream, I think, of mine. But anyway, that's the survey, so that gives us a clue about where they're going with it. Now, if we look at the first glimpse of Alpha 8 that Elion provided back in January, 30th of January this year, a part of their Alpha 7.6 rebalancing and bug fix post on the 30th of January, they did give us a little bit of an insight into what they're planning for Alpha 8. So the main first point that they give us is larger planets, increased from 32 kilometers squared planets to 2,048 kilometers squared playfield. A massive increase in planet size, which is great, which is the #1 requested feature in the survey. That very much plays into the exploration narrative. Well, that's about it, actually, because the larger planets will affect everyone, single player and multiplayer. So it is adventure and exploration narrative. They've also introduced biomes, which is great, again, exploration, and they've introduced solar system random generator, which is great as well. So you're going to be able to randomize the solar system every time you start a new game. Again, playing into that exploration. Improved AI behavior, which is good, so that plays into hopefully the fighting thing that needed improvement. New and improved threats, again, into the adventure and the fighting aspects of the game. Repair to blueprint, wasn't on the survey at all, don't know where that came from, but great, happy to have it. I think that's going to be excellent for the PvP side of things, so it's really good that they're still doing that. Better and creative building tools, we don't know what that's going to include, but great, I guess. But again, we can see from the survey back in December, now that is the general direction that they've gone with these updates. single player PvE exploration. Okay, so we go on to the next Alpha 8 post that they shared with us, and they've included in that one some very nice looking screenshots of their new biomes on their much bigger planets. And yes, they do look very good, and I am very much looking forward to these larger planets with the multiple biomes and things like that. But all we see at the moment from these screenshots are Earth-like planets with Earth-like biomes. What I hope we see further into Alpha 8 is biomes on non-Earth-like planets. So for example, dead planets, planets that have no oxygen next to no atmosphere. Not moons, because they're barren wastelands, but airless planets have their own biomes as well. For example, they could have huge lava lakes, volcanic mountain ranges, dry, full of gargantuan craters and things like that. I suppose what I'm saying is, rather than environmental biomes by weather and temperature, they'd be more biomes by geographical features and geological features. That sort of thing that I'd like to see on non-Earth planets. And it's not just a case of having, oh, you've got an Earth-like planet, then you've got a swamp-like planet, and a desert-like planet, and an ice-like planet, because you get all those biomes on Earth, so they're all Earth-like biomes. So what variation are we going to see on non-Earth-like planets? Are we going to see gas giants that have no ground, and if you continue to descend towards them, your ship just starts taking damage due to the pressure and it explodes? That sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do outside of the Earth-like planets as well. If we carry on through, this is a Q&A from the first post. So here are some highlights from that Q&A. The bad news first. The green and red barriers will still be a thing. Their playfields will still be rectangles wrapped around cylinders. There's still going to be those barriers, but Elion have said that they are going to be working to make them hardly noticeable, which will be interesting to see how they do that. Maybe using weather effects or different teleportation techniques. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The good news is that space is also getting a big buff in the size category. So the planets in your space playfields will also appear much bigger to represent their larger size playfields. The space around them is also getting bigger, so there's going to be more space to fly around in, mine in, build in, hide in, sort of thing. So that's going to be good. More bad news is the travel speed that you can go at will probably remain the same, because that's based on how fast the terrain can load in front of you. So you're not going too fast, the game can't keep up with you. So you're probably only going to be flying at 40 meters per second still, even though the planet's 65 times larger. Playing off the point about new and varied threats, they go on to say that POIs and drone bases can be increased. They can also be placed by biome. You can have multiple drone bases by biome. It's entirely configurable for people that are into building scenarios and customizing YAML files, so that's good. One of the other things that they tease is the question, will there be something dynamic between POIs, proper AI vehicles, wildlife, migration routes, regular Xerox patrols, anything? I'd just like to add to that question is like animal-wildlife interaction, you know, pecking order, food chain kind of things. And they say, we're currently working on improving the ground AI, expect some cool stuff, and stay tuned for more info on this topic in the near future. So yes, they're going to be doing some stuff to that, which is great. The next question, will we see first implementation of wildlife pecking order, which is, yeah, I literally just said that, meaning territorial behavior less randomized, more centralized on certain environmental conditions according to species. What I would like to see is that when I'm plodding along on my motorbike and I've got 5 goddamn predators chasing me through the trees, is that those 5 predators are actually mortal enemies of each other, and that they have their own behaviors based on each other. So that each planet should have a food chain. Essentially, you'll have an apex predator at the top, you know, and goes below. So you get 5 different predators that are all attracted to the sound of a motorbike passing by. As soon as they see each other, they should react in an appropriate way depending on where they are in that pecking order, whether they're at the same level, competitive level, or whether you know, you've got a big ass raptor dinosaur and you've got this little bug thing. The little bug thing's going to run away, and the raptor dinosaur is probably going to chase it and try and eat it. I want to see interactions between animals, and that's a prey and predator interactions as well. And they do say, we're currently working on improving ground AI, expect some cool stuff, and stay tuned for more info on this topic in the near future, which is a copy and paste from the previous answer. But you know, we'll have to wait and see, but they are working on it, so that's interesting too. But otherwise, the planets are going to stay relatively the same, apart from obviously their massive size increase, biome diversity. Other things will stay the same, like the green barriers, red barriers, the speed in which you can travel around a bit. The day-night cycle will be longer, because, you know, it takes longer for the sun to go around, rather the planet to go around the sun, whatever. So there's a longer arc for solar panels and stuff like that. In regards to performance, they do say that there shouldn't be any impact on performance by the larger planets, which makes sense because they're keeping the travel speed the same. So, you know, the game client will only load what you can see within a certain radius around you, and it'll only load that so quickly when you start moving. So the performance should be the same. Again, I'll link the forum post down below so you can go and have a look at that Q&A yourself. There's some good, interesting stuff in there, but those, I think, are the highlights. Moving on to the current or latest post about Alpha 2 that Empyrion have given us. That was Friday the 9th of March. And again, they've shared a couple of screenshots with us. The first one showing off their new shading, terrain shading, which looks good. And I must admit, the mist effects down in the mountains look very, very nice. Again, looking forward to seeing that and coming down in the escape pod, crashing onto that planet. Looks like it's going to be great. One of the first things on this post is about the game start. If you start game, the new solar system generator will randomly pick names from a database of around 600 playfield names. So if you start a new game with a different seed, your planets will have different names. Well, that's nice, but whatever. The important thing to remember, I think, is when you start a new game, the whole solar system can be randomized if you want it to be. So with different seeds, you will have a completely new solar system. And that, again, feeds into the exploration narrative from the survey. Every new game, your exploration starts again. All the planets have different names. They're slightly random in, you know, type and biomes and POI setup and things like that. So it's going to be, you know, more of the same, but in a slightly different sequence, I guess. And I hope that Empyrion keep going with improving the exploration so that it doesn't get boring quickly. You know, it could be things like introducing unique loot items in certain key places, like you can only get this alien type weapon from conquering this alien POI, and it only has a 5% drop chance, that sort of thing, you know. So they can do that, but also focusing exploration around progression as well. So linking progression to exploration would be another good thing to do, I think. Anyway, continuing through this post, you'll be able to sleep in your escape pod to forward time, and it will not despawn in single player only, of course. It'll be interesting to see if they extend that sleep mechanic to bed deco blocks, again in single player. I guess in multiplayer, there won't really be a sleep mechanic because the day-night cycle is shared. So you'll have a limited suit constructor. This is interesting. So this will be capable of building things like food items and bandages, etc. I'm guessing it's only going to be capable of things that you can build with your hands, so non-tool related construction, as it were. But I don't think it's going to replace the survival constructor. I think that will be still a thing, but I think it's for when you're out and about on foot, far away from your base. You'll be able to craft bandages if you've got the materials, things like that. They go on to mention that they're planning to provide a much better survival experience as a game start. More details to come. So survival experience, I don't know. It could be, I mean, it can mean many, many things. That statement means many, many, many things. So a better survival experience could be anything from more threats, which they've already said that they're going to do, to better exploration, which, you know, we've already seen that they're doing, to, yeah, better story, survival, different food mechanics, which they've already tried to mess around with in Alpha 7. Yeah, so more details to come. Yes, please. We need to know more details before we can theorize any more on that particular statement. For you scenario creators out there, detail-focused people, you're going to love the fact that you can now customize the YAMLs so that you can place deposits and POIs in biomes, not just on planets. So if you've got a desert biome and you've got a POI that's like belongs in the desert, you can place that POI in the desert. If you want to have only a certain type of resource available in ice biomes, snow biomes, you can do that. So that'll be fun for you guys. Further down in this post, they give us a very interesting screenshot of their new solar system generator. Starting from the top, we can see Alpha 1.0, and I'm sorry, this is a very low resolution shot. It's all they've given us. But we can see Alpha 1. I presume that means Alpha version 1 of the solar system generator and not of the game. We then got planet, solar system, and orbit space. So we're going to be able to customize all three of these playfield things. So the solar system, overall, orbit space, etc. Carrying on right, we've got export data and export YAML. So it looks like we're going to be able to share the solar systems that we generate, which is pretty cool. You then go into planet type, class, the terrain type, and things like that. So terrain indicates to me that you're going to be able to generate planets types. So lava, for example, planets, dead planets, oxygenless planets. You're going to be able to play with them. Hopefully they'll give you more options to customize the terrain with, and like I said earlier, make some interesting geological features of your dead planets and other planet types. But anyway, just below that, we've got an actual output of the YAML file itself. If we look at the bottom of that screenshot is the most interesting part, which is all the sliders that we've got. And I'm hoping that when you move these sliders around, that image of the map changes in real time. I'm sure it probably does, but that's what I hope it does. And we've got everything from here, from min-max temperature all the way down to the planet axis. Which is just great. We can actually change the axis of the planet, which will change day and night cycles and seasons and stuff. Possibly even maybe link it into weather eventually. I don't know. The other thing on that image that we can see is that they've got their mouse cursor highlighted over a POI. It's giving us the POI epsilon spaceport, its coordinates and radius, etc. I really hope that you can just click and drag that POI around and place it anywhere on the map. I think that would be amazing if that's possible, and that's all it would take. You know, I like the idea of creating a POI city and just having all my POIs focused in the same place. An absolute death trap, but you know, hopefully you'll be able to do this, or at least put in all the civilian POIs in one place. I don't know, but hopefully you can just drag and drop these POIs in there. That would be amazing. I also hope that they introduce gradient lines on that map so that you can see slope steep things are. So I'm assuming the gray areas we see on there are mountains with snow biomes scattered around on top of them. It would be good to see what the gradients are of those, so that if we are dragging and dropping POIs around, we're not sticking them on the middle of a sheer cliff. But that does look pretty good, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Continuing through the post, they go on to stuff for builders. The most exciting out of that is that automatic doors can now be controlled by signal logic, so you can actually prevent an automatic door from automatically opening if it's associated with signal logic and that hasn't been triggered. So if you've got an automatic door, you can link that to a flick switch and it will only open if you flick the switch rather than just opening when you walk up to it anyway. So that's good. You can lock yourself in a room, which is great. Also, they're going to be working on blinking lights in the future, so it might not come in the first iteration of Alpha 8, but it's on the way, so that's great. Love to have some blinking light details on a lot of my ships. New status effects. So this is an interesting point. So new status effects are things like, you know, broken leg, whatever, open wound, things like that. Elion have given us a nice diagram to show the progression of these things if left untreated, which is great. You know, I love this attention to detail. If you get poison bite, or poison bit, if they spelled it there, goes to intoxication, and then eventually organ failure. This is all very well and good, but we discussed this a little bit on the Wolves community blog recently, and I'll put a link to that in the video description below as well. If you get one of these diseases or injuries or anything like that, why cure it? Why not just die? Why not just kill yourself and then respawn disease-free and carry on as if nothing happened? Now, there are some exceptions to that. Obviously, if you're at the bottom of the abandoned mine POI, dying there is probably not a desirable fate. You probably want to get out. But let's assume that you did get out and you've made it all the way back to your base, but you've got a full-on infected wound going. And to cure that infected wound, you need X, Y, and Z, and you've only got X. Okay? Now, you could go and get Y and Z, but it will probably take you longer than you've got to live. Or you take your helmet off and go and drown yourself, and in 30 seconds respawn back at your base all healthy. You know, there's no question you're going to drown yourself every time. It's just easier. You carry on with the game. If they really want to be serious about having diseases and injuries and things like that, they need to implement, in my opinion, death penalties. That sounds morbid, doesn't it? Death penalties. Give them the chair. Give them the lethal injection. No. What I mean is, you know what I mean. You know, there needs to be some kind of mechanic that makes death a very undesirable thing in the game. Now, I think they should introduce that and then give the players the option to turn it on or off in their game. Okay, so simple tick box exercise when you start a new game. Do you want death penalties or whatever you want to call them? Probably not death penalties, because that's kind of, you know what I mean. But if you die, for example, you lose your entire backpack instantly. But if they do that, they need to put in mechanics for you to be able to start from scratch again, because if you die early on and you haven't actually set up a base yet, you haven't got a production line in place, how are you going to build yourself a drill in order to get resources? Then they're going to need to put things in place. If they're going to give the possibility for you to lose all your stuff upon death, you need a way to start from scratch. So maybe they need to implement with their little suit constructor thing that they've already introduced, the ability to fabricate a new drill from raw resources you can actually pick up from by hand. That sort of thing. Or, you know, if you die, you go back to the last time you went to sleep. And actually then sleeping is an actual thing that you need to do in order to properly save your progress. If you're going to go out and try and take a POI, have a good night's sleep the night before, then go out. If you die, you wake up in your bed and it was all a bad dream and you try again. That sort of thing. So they need to think about that, I think, if they're going to really want people to take these illnesses and wounds with any kind of consideration. Because frankly, at the moment, if I get open wound and that goes into infect, I'm just going to take my helmet off and drown myself, you know, and respawn. It's just easier. So that's it. I mean, the rest of that post is they go on and they share some more beautiful looking screenshots. And again, this is just for the Earth type planet, and that's great. But I'm really interested to see what kind of customization we're going to get around non-Earth type planets as well. Another teaser as well is the Spire thing. I can't remember the name of it, but refurbished by Lift Pete. So that's probably going to come back in story missions. So they're hinting at story missions. Now, the PDA, they've done a lot of work on the PDA and tutorials, which is great, but we want more. We want more. We want an actual story. We want some lore. We want, why were we in our escape pod? Why did we crash? Yada, yada, yada. You know, we want story progression. We want progression linked to exploration and things like that. So that's it for the post. That's it for what we know about Alpha 8 and what we can kind of guess where Alpha 8 is going, because the survey very much indicated a single player PvE focus. So we can expect changes and new features that are going to improve the single player PvE exploration genre. That's things like story, narrative, bigger planets, more interesting fauna, flora, that sort of thing. So that's good. It's all good stuff. But for people that are playing for multiplayer experience and things like that, might feel a bit left out. But they should still have plenty to get their teeth into with these bigger planets, bigger play fields, and stuff like that. We're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for those weapon rebalancing and things like that. What to see in Alpha 8 and beyond is along those lines. I think Elion are doing a very good thing with the direction that they're going at the moment with the exploration and the bigger planets and things like that. But what I really want to see is a complete rework of the tech tree, weapon balancing, power management, and things like that. So I'm not going to go into horrible detail because I could talk about this for the next 4 hours and bore the living hell out of you guys. So let me try and summarize in the best possible way. First of all, get rid of levels. Okay, the whole leveling thing to unlock stuff, I hate it. Okay, and that's me personally. You might disagree. In fact, if you do disagree, let me know in the comments. Convince me otherwise. But leveling to unlock things, it makes no sense. To me, it makes no sense within the context of being stranded on a random alien planet. If you have the blueprints and technology to build an advanced constructor, a T2 generator, why don't you have it straight away? Why is it that you have to go out and kill innocent animals in order to gain enough experience to learn how to build a T2 generator? Okay, personally, for me, progression in a tech tree should be achieved through exploration and conquest. Okay, you should have to go out and find them. You should have to go out and find the blueprints. Okay, it's difficult to not draw comparisons with other games, and especially because recently I played Subnautica, which is an amazing survival game, and that does exactly that. You get some basic blueprints, you have to go out and find the rest of them. Okay, and that's how you progress, you explore, and exploration in that game is fantastic. They could do the same thing in Empyrion. They're going down the exploration route, link progression to exploration, make it necessary to go out, kill those POIs, scan, discover blueprints, however you want to do it, I don't care. But it's doable, and I don't think it's too difficult for them to do that, to change that. But that whole tech tree thing needs to go, quite frankly. Levels need to go. I don't care what level I am. It's pointless, and it doesn't make any sense in the context of the game, in my opinion. So let me know what you think about that, whether you agree, disagree, whatever. Be interested in your thoughts. The other one, just quickly, is weapon balancing. They could do so much for this. You know, they already said on the survey that shields are one of the highest things that people have requested. So if you're going to introduce shields, that's going to break weapon balancing anyway. So I think if you're going to implement shields, you need to rebalance the weapon systems, introduce more weapon systems. And I'm talking specifically at the moment for CVs, but to be honest, it could be extended across the board. HVs, SVs, bases, the lot. If you're going to introduce shields, I would suggest you change weapons to have different effects on different parts of the target. So if the target's got shields, ballistic weapons like cannon, minigun, flak, missiles have next to no effect on shields, but lasers and plasmas have a huge effect on shield. But then at the same time, as soon as those shields are down, lasers and plasmas have next to no effect on hull. But ballistics like cannon, minigun, flak, missiles have a huge effect on hull. You know, so it's important to have ships and stuff that have a balanced weapon loadout so that you can deal with both shields and hull. You know, and that's how you implement weapon limits and diversity. Limiting weapons by just slapping an arbitrary number on them doesn't make any sense either. I think weapon limits should just be thrown out the window, and you can have enough guns on and have whatever count of guns that you want on the ship, but it has its own consequences. So for example, if I want 30 artillery guns on a ship, I should be able to do that, but I'll have to realize that carrying 30 artillery guns worth of ammo requires half the ship to just be ammo boxes, because artillery ammo takes up an enormous amount of space. Also, artillery ammo is incredibly expensive to make. Artillery is very slow firing, has very slow turret rotation, and is just inaccurate, but it's very powerful. So you have advantages and disadvantages to do this to your decision-making process. So if you want to have just a missile frigate, that's great, except if you come up against a flak frigate, those missiles aren't going to get through. Flak is the ultimate defense against small vessels, or should be the ultimate defense against small vessels and missiles and things like that. You should throw up a flak screen. You look at Battlestar Galactica, for example, the flak on that is incredible. Just pretty much shuts anything down. Something can still get through, of course, but the chance is lowered. So I'd really like to see more thought go into the weapon systems. Flak should be a lot more powerful against small vessels, missiles, but pretty puny against CV hulls. It shouldn't really be used for that. Missiles are only really effective against hulls if they get through. You know, that sort of thing, and it really needs to be considered around the ammunition manufacturing as well. Ammunition for cannon turrets and minigun turrets should be very easy and cheap to make, but ammunition for homing missiles is very expensive to make, as with artillery. Ammunition for lasers, again, very cheap to make. Plasma's a little bit more expensive. You know, kind of balance it out. But yes, get rid of weapon limits. I know that there's problems in the game at the moment with lag and stuff like that. But if you control weapon limits through game features rather than arbitrary number restrictions, it creates opportunities for design and ship designs to be a lot more thought out and a lot more important. And the last thing I wanted to quickly touch on, and what I hope for Alpha 8, is power management. So again, kind of going off of the shields and weapon things, at the moment we could just chuck 4 T2 generators on a ship and 60 fuel tanks and we're golden. We never have to worry about power usage again. But if you're introducing shields, they'll drain a lot of power. Also, my belief is that the life support systems on a capital vessel should drain power like crazy. Like 70% of a ship's power requirements should be life support. Heating and keeping airflow through a ship in the vacuum of space is very power hungry. It's very intensive. Engines obviously as well, but you know, if you put 4 T2 generators into a ship, regardless of how much power you're actually using, those 4 T2 generators, in my opinion, should burn through a crap load of fuel. And so you actually, proper ship design, you want to balance what generators you have to you know, input output capacity in order to maximize efficiency of fuel usage and things like that. Maybe that's thinking too much about it, and it's going into realms people don't want to go into in their game, you know, and things like that. You don't want to think about it too much. You don't want to have to put too much. What do you think? Let me know. Is that going to detract from the fun of the game if you put all this maths in it? I think you can do it and keep it relatively fun and accessible for people with good tutorials, good examples and things like that in the game. Also, you know, 3 tiers of generator matched to, maybe you could put tooltips in the devices to say this many devices equals this many generators, that sort of thing, you know what I mean? So I think there are ways to make it accessible but also deep with good depth, and that's what I hope to see power management actually become a thing. Anyway, I have waffled on enough for this episode, I think. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. What are you excited about an Alpha 8? What we've covered today? What are you not excited about? What do you hate? What do you agree with my thoughts, disagree with my thoughts? You know, what are you looking forward to and not looking forward to, I guess, with Alpha 8? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to see what you guys think. So thank you very much for watching, and remember, if you want more videos from me, hit that subscribe button, and if you liked this video, make sure you give that a big old fat thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching. It's greatly appreciated, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.